Zoning Commission meeting to order, April 20th, 2023. Do a roll call. Mike Ablin.
Present.
Okay. Don Bayless, absent. David Cobb.
Present.
Douglas Dunn, present. Alicia Espiriti.
Present.
Okay. Sandy Hoosman.
Here.
Doug Taylor.
Present.
Mel Sort, who says he's coming. And our staff person here, the Public Works Director. I'm not Public Works. Long day. Building Inspector. Agenda, well, call to the public, of which there is none, so we'll move on. Agenda item 1 is a public hearing on a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, possible recommendation of the mayor and council. Consideration of proposed amendment to the zoning code, Article 5, specific plan zoning, 5.2R. 5.2R zone residential and 5.23C zone residential commercial to insert maximum parcel percentage for lot coverage. All public notice hearings have been met. Staff report. Joe?
This is something that the lot coverage is something that we're like the only municipality that I know of, although I don't know everything, it's quite a long shot. But we're the only municipality that I'm aware of that doesn't have this in the zoning code. And it was pointed out that that's something we need, and here it is, and I think it's probably a good idea to get this taken care of.
Okay. So present the item, we'll declare the public hearing open to receive public input, of which I don't believe there is any. So I'll declare it closed. Commission discussion.
I have
A question. So last meeting, we discussed a 4,000 square foot lot split, and I see here under 5.1 bullet 3, it says no future division tracts or lot parcels resulting in lots in developed areas will be approved. What does that mean, and how does that differ from the 4,000 that we discussed last meeting?
That's not what we're working on, but that is already in there, in our code.
So we're not allowed to divide lots?
You're not allowed to divide anything smaller in Old Bisbee than 4,000 square feet.
Okay, so where is that language covered within here?
I think what you're looking at is on the existing wording, the verbiage that's in the zoning code.
Isn't that in 5.3.2 somewhere?
Yeah. It's in the existing code in
Yeah.
5.3.2 D2. So that's not something that you guys are voting on today.
Okay. But doesn't the conflict?
Oh, D, that's right.
I'm sorry, I don't hear very well.
Oh, so if we say no future divisions in our existing code, and then we make a new line to say it's 4,000, those two items.
Where is this in what I'm looking at here?
5.1 bullet 3.
In the proposed?
Item 1, back side of the page, bullet 3. Black ink is existing.
Right. something that you're approving today. You're approving the lot coverage that will be added to that section.
Okay.
So, Joe, for clarification, everything that's in red, is that what we're reviewing to approve today?
Sorry, Mike, would you use your microphone?
Is what's in red, that's what we're reviewing today, is that correct?
That's correct.
Or, so those are the additions to the existing 5.1 zone?
Yeah.
I just, for
That's
clarification.
right.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I feel that the two tables that are shown in red here, the two new tables should be incorporated into the existing 5.2 and 5.2.3A tables so that it's not confusing to someone who's scanning through all the regulations, that if we can have tables, this looks like the tables are separate, that may just be for our edification, but I think it should be incorporated into that. And just for the record, and Joe will back me up on this or tell me if I'm wrong, I'd like to draw the attention of the board to the fact that this does not affect the historic preservation overlay. Those lot changes and height restrictions and all that are in there are going to remain the same. This will not change lot coverage on anything in the historic overlay. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
That it's not correct? Or you-
I think that it will affect the historic district as well as the rest of the county,
Well-
but I haven't paid that much attention to that.
Okay.
It's in 5.1,
Well, in
the
5.
last item in 5.1.
In 5.3.1, it says the general regulations per 5.2 on lot area, width, depth, height, and setback do not apply to the historic preservation overlay zone. 5.3.1.
Yep,
So is that, am I correct in that?
we're correct if it's not specifically
Yeah.
adopted in 5.3 point.
Because it does say lot area.
5.3, historic district overlay.
So I just want to make sure that we all know that this isn't going to affect the historic district.
Other comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to Mayor and Council a proposed amendment to the zoning code Article 5, specific plan zoning, 5.2 R zone residential, and 5.2.3 C zone residential commercial, to insert maximum parcel percentage for lot coverage and adding parcel coverage to the definitions in Article 9, definitions after number 93 parcel.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. I'll call a roll call then, vote. Mike Adlin,
Agreed.
David Cobb,
Yes?
Douglas Dunn, yes. Alicia,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
carries. Agenda item 2, discussion of possible direction on whether or not the commission will continue to discussion on the recreation vehicle issue. Comments?
I got a couple comments. I see that Sandy Houseman, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
I like your comments, and I also see that looks like Joni is in support of this, and I just want to bring everyone's attention that you see what's going on today and this weekend, the amount of people that are going to be contributing to the Bisbee economy. Those are the types of recreational vehicles that I think we'd like to see so long as they play by the rules. I think you mentioned about 400 of them coming down this weekend. So those are all vehicles that are high net worth people that are going to probably contributing heavily to the economy here of Bisbee, and we'd like to encourage those people, not to discourage them. So I'm in support of several of the comments that some of the people made, and I think it's a good idea to try to put some greater restrictions on the vehicles that are not registered and that people are living in them. I think that's a violation, and we should try to enforce that and encourage more of what's going on this weekend with those types of RVers. So, just some general comments.
Well, certainly the note that we got from the city attorney, he identified 3 issues. One is parking in Old Bisbee, we've talked about that. The second is storage, we've talked about that, which means we talked about storage on streets and public right-of-way as well as on private property. And then, of course, the living in RVs, which is something I think is what's prohibited now, other than you can temporarily get a permit from you for a guest for several days, right?
Yeah.
But as far as something more permanent, that's now outlawed, right? Or,
Yeah. Although almost nobody comes to me for a permit.
well, I noticed walking that there's a large RV on Cochise Road, which they have actually fenced off, and appears like people are living in, which permanently. And how does that fit in?
It doesn't fit in. What happens is that there've been complaints about, from that location, about other places in the neighborhood where people are staying unlawfully. But I don't, right now I feel like it's a glass house kind of a situation, but I don't want it to seem like I'm getting even with the people, because I don't have a dog in the fight, you know, that whether or not, this isn't retaliation, but they're not allowed to have that fifth wheel it is, that RV that they're living in, they're not allowed to have that at all. And it really has to be brought to their attention. And I'm kind of uncomfortable with it because they made complaints. And so then I was kind of letting it die down a little bit before I went over there. But we'd had a long discussion about that in City Hall.
Well, certainly that's the case where they've actually made improvement on the property in terms of the locating of that, placement of that RV, which in many other cases that we're complaining about, that's not the case. It's just been kind of pulled into the front yard or backyard and utilized.
And when you have a second residence on the property, you pay a second garbage and sewer bill, which isn't happening most times either, including that one.
Well, I think that kind of brings up what I was talking about, and I'm still on the same dog on that one, is that we don't have a plan to enforce or to relieve citizens that are going to be displaced. I can't vote for a regulation that doesn't have any. We already have regulations that are in place, and Mr. Ward has told us about those. But I can't say let's put in another regulation if we don't have any way of either enforcing or relieving whatever, that there is a group of people that need that housing. What are we going to do about it? Nobody has stepped up and done an alternative camp, use that, I forget what part of the zoning it's in, but we do have an alternative camp regulation that we could approve, and essentially, it has to come before us, but I can't vote in favor of putting in another law that we're not going to put into place, and I just can't see it.
I don't think we're voting on that at all.
No, we're not, but
because it's already in there.
Right,
I think it's
there are
a
laws
matter-
in there, and I just think it's adding to it, and I know we're not really voting on anything yet, but adding things into it I don't think is for the good of the people or the city.
And,
But
yeah,
I don't think we're adding to it. We already have something in place in the zoning code that prohibits people from permanently living in RVs. So at this point, that particular area of living in RVs, I think, is just a matter of whether and how we enforce it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and so that to me is a moot point about putting in another piece of legislation that will, piggyback on that. I don't think it's necessary.
if I may, yeah, I think so. As a person who sits on the council, I agree with you, Doug. I can't we just keep adding laws to the proposed law? We have laws. Sometimes we have to implement the laws, but creating other laws. So I read through this and proposing other law and other enforcement. If it's not doable, I believe it has to be practical. So what we have now, I think, we just wherever we can enforce it, we should. But creating another law, first of all, it's not going to be enforceable. As I know, I mean, maybe you can correct me. You can do what we don't need another law. So I don't think we need to proceed with this to the city council. I think we just need to do what we have, what we can do now, and no, but just creating one more law, I don't foresee that. That's something that's doable. It has anything you do, anything you want to create, it has to be doable and enforceable, and just to do it and create an additional law, and that may create a situation where we are do a law where it's enforceable 100%, where they become picking and choosing, and I think you're going to create a lot of discord in this community. So these are my thoughts on this. So I agree with Doug on this, and I think we just.
And if I may piggyback on that comment, is I would like to see us exploring an objective of having a zoning enforcement officer under Mr. Ward. Mr. Ward, I know, I worked with him for a while. I know he's overworked. I would like to see someone, and I'd like to see that happen sooner than later, that would be a zoning enforcement officer that also, because the historic district overlay also falls under that it's under zoning, that person would also work on that. I think there's enough fines that would fund that position, but that I'd rather see us discuss than adding more laws that nobody can, like you said, pick and choose which one you're going to enforce.
Anything we do, I mean, like I said, this was to come in front of me in the city council. I'm just being the liaison here, and I'm expressing what I think. If it's not doable, we have enough, I think, to anything that you do, it has to be easily doable, easily enforceable. And my biggest fear, we create this and we start cherry picking here, and it's not gonna be good. So if you ask my opinion, I think this will stop here, and maybe Doug, maybe the committee will come with something later on where we can do something that's doable. But just to bring this and create another law, I don't see that.
I have two things on that. What about RVs that are parked on public right-of-way that people are living in? Do I understand that that's happening?
It is.
Okay. Is that something we need to deal with? Well, people are living, it's already against the ordinance.
It's already against the ordinance to camp on the public right-of-way.
Right.
And,
So we have a law for
that's
this.
mostly,
It's already-
that's
it's
mostly
on the
outside
book.
of my purview,
Yeah.
and then
That's the police.
the police will not, touch that, in my experience.
I saw 2 items in the last police beat in the Observer where people complained that RVs were parked on their street and people were living in them. Or people were staying overnight, I guess, in them. I don't know if they were living there or if they were just parked there and they pulled the slide out and spent the night. But
Yeah.
it was in the police beat, so did the police actually respond to that? Do they respond to those complaints?
I doubt it.
Just wondering.
I wish that they would let me know on some of these, because many times there's things that can be done about it, but
And with this, the law, correct me if I just add this, I mean, somebody is parked and then you go and tell them, because we have this with these advertisement banners, you tell them they can just move it a meter.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get the police going out there, trying to enforce this, and I can tell you up front, they don't have the time for this. And the guy can just go in the van and he can move it a meter or two, and then you have to do it over and over again. We just have to be practical in our lawmaking here.
our police are focusing on criminals, not on nuisances.
Yeah.
So I think when Joni came to us and raised the issue of people living in their RVs and asked us to take that up, I think we've done that since it's already in the code.
Exactly.
So there's nothing, we don't need to do anything else with the code, it's just a matter of when and how we enforce.
So it's an enforcement problem.
Yeah.
We have the laws,
Yeah,
we agree on the laws. It comes down to now, how do we enforce the laws?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
something for the Plan and Zoning Commission to have a discussion, or why doesn't the police enforce the laws?
Right, that's outside of your purview.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm just asking a general question. If it's a violation, I mean, it's not gonna be a problem until somebody, God forbid, blows up their RV that's illegally parked on somebody's lawn and somebody dies. And then all of a sudden, it's gonna be a real problem. So what can we do, and this is just a general question, why isn't something being done? And what do we have to do to raise the awareness of what's about to take place?
I'm not sure how to.
I mean, this is not something that, there's not something, can we discuss this? It's not something within our,
I just throwing it out as a general, I'm just.
yeah, but I'm just saying that
Police,
the law.
police enforcement isn't part of
Yeah,
our
yeah,
agenda
so we
item.
can't just talk about anything
yeah.
that's not on
We
the
can
agenda.
mention anecdotally that the police are overworked, we're
They're
stretched
understaffed,
very
that's
thin.
the bottom
Yeah.
line, they are
Yeah.
understaffed.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe, I mean, like I said, this, I think finally we're gonna put it to rest, hopefully, it's up to you guys. But maybe we can see, like the question that Mike is asking, maybe it's something can go and look at from different department to see how we can enforce this more. And my question will be, I will be asking the question, I said this is not part of the agenda, so actually you'll probably stop me in a second. I'm known to talk a lot. Maybe how big of a problem it is, to be honest with you? Is it so big? I don't know. I don't know, I couldn't say it.
Well, certainly, Councilman Giacomino has responded to my email, and she certainly feels that she has constituents who are concerned about illegal parking of RVs, and whether they're being lived in or whether they're just being parked.
Yeah.
So I'm just, for the record, it is a problem. It's going to be a growing problem. And if it's not addressed, it's going to have a very bad impact on communities like Bisbee and other small communities. So I'm just saying that for the record. It's something that just can't be a blind eye to. It needs to be addressed. So if we've addressed it legally and it's in the code, I think it's incumbent upon us to somehow raise the awareness and get this thing enforced. It will be a problem. And I'm just saying that for the record.
It's grown.
You're gonna end up having a Walmart parking lot filled with all sorts of stuff. And it's gonna fester, and it's happening in communities all around the United States. So to just say that, well, whatever, I mean, that's why I said, for the record, we need to raise the awareness of this and do something to get it enforced.
Which takes us back to what you had said about a code enforcer versus a law enforcer being a police officer. Is there more time and availability on city staff, and is that our concern to recommend that to city council that there be a code enforcer or someone who spends X amount of time or energy enforcing codes?
That can be a recommendation. You can talk to your, council people and that. But we also have a finite amount of money, and the budgets are being heard right now.
And it's not possible that someone who's already on staff might have time to take that on, or?
Probably not.
I
Not
highly
in the
doubt
sense
it.
of what we're talking
Yeah.
today.
I highly doubt that.
I'm sorry?
I would highly doubt that with the staff
Yeah.
that we have right now,
Yeah, they
Everyone's
wouldn't
unfortunately.
believe how many
Yes.
jobs they do.
Yeah, it just has to be practical. I think this is maybe can be addressed from a different, like you said, maybe good, but that's a completely different out of this realm of our view. So it has, I think, I don't think we can go further on this.
Alicia, did you have?
Yeah, can I wear your mic here?
Yeah.
So, we talked about the problem, I have a couple, information on solutions. So, Van Life Co-op, there is one going in Bisbee, it's 100% funded. They recently put the land under contract, it's out by Thirsty Lizard. So there's solutions like that, you have entrepreneur opportunities, individuals can buy into these communities, they can live there, they're permitted. The biggest thing the county is concerned about is water and sewage. So I think with living in RVs, some of these RVs, let's face it, they're probably safer than some of the houses in Old Bisbee. But the real problem is how do you get water, how do you get safe electric, how do you get sewer? So we maybe open, the box a little bit and say, hey, we have these ADUs, would we explore accepting an RV as an ADU as long as you have the proper connections and you go through the proper permitting process? So that's one option. Two is you have BLM. So BLM is offering discounted lease rates right now. I personally know of a property in Bisbee that's up for BLM. Why not, get the entrepreneurs out and say, okay, maybe the city of Bisbee opens a designated area with a BLM land lease, and hey, van lifers come tour, but camp out over here, just not on our streets because we don't have the parking.
And my understanding is that both of those are either county or fed, and that wouldn't be the purview of this board. I would love to see this happen, but it's a great
It's
idea.
just a solution to the problem. We talk about the problem, let's offer solutions. It's outside of this board, but there are entrepreneurial opportunities for the city of Bisbee to engage in and other individuals in the
That's
community.
great. And we do have the, and I'll look it up for next time, we have the, and maybe Mr. Ward knows right off the top of his head, but we do have an area in the zoning code that would allow within city limits an alternative. It could be dry camp, it can be tiny houses, it can be anything that is kind of considered alternative housing that can get a permit and actually make have a somewhat of a rent. I don't know what that means, but you could it could be like a campground and it's an alternative. No one has done it, so it's not there yet, but that's within the city limit. We could actually talk about that here at some point.
And then the parking garage thing's a whole other issue, but there's plenty of grant money coming down from the bipartisan infrastructure law. Like, we're talking billions. And we're a mining town, and there's a lot of attention for abandoned mining town right now from an economic standpoint.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff.
At the earlier meeting, we talked about recommending to Public Works in terms of certain signage about not parking on the streets.
Vehicle camping.
Vehicle.
Camping or parking?
Just a question, and the item we just addressed, so aren't you going to vote to see whether to continue or not? I think
They were just gonna have discussion and direction.
discussion,
No
so you're not
vote,
gonna,
yeah.
okay, so we're not going, to okay,
Yep.
okay.
But anyway, that was a recommendation in an earlier meeting to try some signage in terms
Signage.
of you
Okay,
cannot park on the streets of Old Bisbee overnight.
okay,
And I guess,
okay.
and live, spend the night there, I guess, which I guess
Like,
is.
no overnight camping or parking or something like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, two different things, so what, did you mean parking or camping?
Camping.
Vehicle?
Well, would be overnight parking in your vehicle, I guess, wasn't that the name of our
Camping, they
discussion?
would be technically camping.
Yeah.
They couldn't sleep in their vehicle overnight.
Yeah, I'm putting camping.
Yeah.
Because it is not really camping, but anyway, overnight,
Yeah.
sleeping overnight in your car is not permitted in.
Okay,
Forbidden.
Right, no matter what the vehicle.
Right.
okay,
Or anywhere in Biddy.
right.
Right, right, because you can do it, I see it on around the Vista every so often.
What else do we want to do? I don't know whether, I mean, I know when I was on the council, there were certainly several instances of people bringing in an RV, I think particularly Bakerville, that had really turned into a very unsafe situation. And I guess that's still being monitored, and that's certainly the extreme case of people who are living in RVs or trailers, whatever.
Yeah, RV covers all of that
Right.
by definition.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many cases there are of that. The more extreme cases, I mean, that are, you know, a threat to the people who are living there as well as their neighbors in terms of the health and fire safety. I don't know whether that's, how many cases we have like that kind of.
I think it's, you know, maybe I have too much of a vision of having worked in the city, but I do think that it puts a burden on code enforcement or legal enforcement where they have to triage you know, what is the most important or what is the most critical issue that we have to respond to. And I feel like knowing what the staffing ability is on both police and code enforcement, that we are putting a burden on. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do anything, but I think this really all leads to, you know, that they're overworked. And how do we fix that first?
Do we want to just drop this at this point, or is there any recommendation to the council? I mean, we can make a recommendation in terms of more budget for code enforcement, but I think the council is aware of that.
And if not, they are now.
Because
he can bring that forward.
I think at this stage, and I'll tell you upfront, drop this for now. Proceed on to just creating more laws, more things that are not doable and not enforceable. For now, I think that should be dropped unless later on if something else we can come up with.
Well, that's somewhat the consensus, well, I shouldn't say. Is that the consensus of the group?
How's Joni gonna feel about that?
She's not gonna
She's
like
the one
it.
who instigated it.
I think she's probably watching us here on.
Oh, okay.
It's not streaming live, but she can watch it back
She can
tomorrow.
watch it and she can
Yes.
come and yell at me when she wants.
Okay.
I urge her to be here
again, council
tonight.
will be discussing budgets next week, starting Monday. And, I mean, if that's something that, you know, is brought forward in the discussions with, whether it be Joni or whether it be
Yeah.
Mel here, it can be brought up and discussed.
So again, for the record, Mel, it's something that needs to be addressed.
Sure.
That's
Can be
what-
addressed, but I'm just saying
We
that.
discussed it, we've addressed it, and for the record, my position is that if it doesn't go addressed, it's going to become a huge problem for the city of Bismarck. That's where I stand on this.
And I don't know if this is the point where, I was gonna do this during commissioner comments, but I propose that we have, and maybe through Mel, have, I don't know if that's appropriate, but have the council aware that we do, and I think this discussion tonight and the last couple of nights have put a yellow marker across it. We do have a problem. We have a problem that could possibly be solved by a code enforcement officer.
Because we have been lost.
Yeah, and I don't think a citizen should be, especially in light of things that have been happening where people go to doors of private homes and such lately, I don't think a citizen should be trying to enforce the law. But I do think Mr. Ward is understaffed, that if we had someone who could be zoning enforcement and all the things that include, that could make it so that we can remedy this issue. And I think if we can send a message back to the council, I don't think Joni's wrong.
No.
I think
Right.
that it's that we don't have the resources, and the city could, at this point, their budgets
What
are.
Ashley just said, what you're saying, and to Mike's answer, what we could do, and if it comes up in the budget, maybe I'll talk to Johnny, maybe we'll bring it up. And what Doug is saying, maybe if we have the resources and the finances, we just need to enforce the codes. So basically, that's why I'm just saying, we're not against, we're all, I think, on the same page here. It's just create another layer of laws, that's my issue. But we just need to enforce the existing laws.
Yeah.
So during budget, maybe that can, I will happily talk about this and say maybe we can come up with a code if it's available where. And we just need to enforce the codes that are in the books right now.
Well, likewise, if there was enforcement, then we could also consider taking a stronger stance
Yeah.
about removing RVs off of the
Yeah,
public
right.
right of way.
Yeah, whatever it would take.
Because right now, and Mr. Rowe just said, the police, we're gonna put this law, the police are not gonna go out there, and it's gonna be, I will call it become cherry picking. And that's my biggest fear. If someone strong enough, had a louder voice can call in and maybe can get the police somehow to get one to come out and enforce it, then how about the rest? That's my only concern. So maybe it's a good that you guys brought this up. Maybe we can go to the city council and see if we can come up with extra budget for that and enforce it on the existing laws.
Well, that would
Nobody's
be,
wrong.
that would be my request.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
we'll move,
So,
go on.
the question, overnight parking, overnight camping in
Camping.
vehicles.
Right.
Overnight stays in vehicles. I don't think that's addressed in the current code, is it? So if we put up signs, would that need to be written into our zoning code?
Well, anytime anything has to deal with like signage or things like that, anything changing signage, Public Works and would get with police and fire, of course, they all discuss that. They would propose any sort of signage changes to council and they'd proceed from there.
Okay, so we don't need to write it into this particular one, okay.
Doesn't that exist already?
It does in the zoning code. That doesn't necessarily apply to city
To
street,
city codes,
which of
right.
course would be in city code, which is outside of our purview.
Yeah, and then that's what I'm talking is city code, yeah.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on then. Right, we're ready to move on to agenda item 3. Update discussion to the council regarding crosswalks to include but not limited to the zebra crosswalk at 99 Main Street. Commissioner Cobb has brought this for us.
Logan responded and said that pretty much that they're willing to take care of the zebra crosswalk by the Royale without any input from city council. They'll just put it back in where it was. And he was gonna look into the loading zone sign because it predates him, but also thought that that was a good idea. I guess I'll do my best to follow up maybe in a couple weeks and say, you know, what's coming along, because that was about a month ago. I guess I missed a meeting, and there's still no zebra crosswalk there, and the Royale is open for business now. The reason I kept it on the agenda was, one reason anyway, was Doug, you had mentioned more crosswalks that needed to be filled in, and there's 2 at Subway and Main.
Yeah, there are several, actually, I was not aware of a couple of them, but there were several, I don't know how many, maybe Joe remembers, but there were a bunch of them that were there before the paving, and I would like to see all of those returned. I think that they were important, and I know the one that was near me that isn't, and there's me self-serving to a certain extent, but the one near me is very dangerous. It crosses between cars, and it's at the bottom of a stair that's used by quite a few tourists.
So there's a crosswalk there, you just consider it a dangerous crosswalk?
Well, there isn't a repaving. There was a
There
crosswalk.
wasn't and there isn't?
Yes,
Okay.
at the stair between the BTC, the old
Yeah.
police station,
Yeah.
and the old grocery store that's now known as the Empress. There was a crosswalk at the bottom of that stair that went across to the old railroad station parking lot, which is still in existence.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that parking lot's used a lot by tourists and citizens,
Yeah.
and I think it's very dangerous, and that, I thought if that could be piggybacked into this.
Well, I will email Logan and ask him to see if he's willing to address that.
That'd be great.
I don't know exactly where that is, BTC, if you could give me the addresses in between, you know what.
It's on the east side of number 8 Naco Road.
Okay.
When they were doing the repaving, and I remember Mr. Haro, who was the public works director at the time, saying that there was legalities with some of these, or many of these crosswalks. That's why they were done away with, because we couldn't legally put a crosswalk although there is a de facto crosswalk at a corner every street intersection. But by putting it, that there had to be ADA compliant
Curbing.
ramps and everything on each
Right.
side.
Yeah.
And curbing as well.
It got a little bit wonky, and then there's all kinds of regulations that are outside of that, you know, like the beeping ones and that are supposed to be, you know, for people who
Can't
are
see.
blind
Yeah.
and such, and I think it was, and I wasn't really involved in this, but I was around when it was being talked about, and I think that factored into doing away with some of those crosswalks because the legalities were just too rough for us to deal with right now.
And yet we have crosswalks that don't have signage in the middle of the historic district. And then there's crosswalks that do have signage higher up Tombstone Canyon. So is there some, and that, which is also historic district, right, all the way up to?
But really, that's outside of my purview, and it's outside of the zoning code and the planning and zoning commission
Yeah.
also.
Huh. I'm confused, sorry, I don't see why we're able to have some crosswalks without signage.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Okay.
It's outside of my expertise, I have.
Well, then, we'll ask Logan if we can have one more crosswalk without signage and see what he says. As I said, I mean, he said they were gonna do it, but, you know.
And I'm not certain that all crosswalks have to be ADA compliant. I think that I'm not certain about that.
Okay. I assume it's regarding liability issues and things like that, right?
Perhaps, but quite often the remedy for that is a curb cut. You know,
I'm sorry, is what?
quite often for that, the remedy is a curb cut. They just cut the curb. So I don't know if that's necessary. They weren't that way before.
Yeah,
You know.
okay. Well, again, I'll just contact him and see what's up and put in another request. That's all right with everyone.
Yep.
Staff comments, do you have anything further, Joe, for our future consideration?
There was something I was thinking of earlier, but it's totally gone.
Well, thank goodness. Commissioner comments from the official suggested future agenda items, things that we cannot discuss tonight, but could be put on to a future agenda item.
I guess I'll reiterate that I was looking for that expansion of enforcement.
I think under Commissioner comments, I just wanted to say that I've attended 2 of the affordable housing group. There's a new affordable housing group that has been meeting. They've had 2 meetings so far. Last one was just Monday night, I think. They unfortunately haven't been attended by any of the public, but there's still a core group of people that are really looking at options and trying to get community involvement, trying to get some ideas on what we can do. And I think what you had mentioned about the property is really a good one. Some place for people to park the RVs that are sitting in their yards or in front of their houses, and people using them as living quarters. But anyway, the affordable housing group is just getting off the ground, and they're pretty determined, and it'll be a while before there's enough people involved that anything will happen, but it's starting.
I have one item. So clean energy Infrastructure Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last year. $432 billion is coming down as a result of that Biden legislation. We are a historic mining town. There is a lot of money to implement clean energy and restore economics in communities like ours. And I think we should probably start to look at zoning, planning, code around that. Because when you are scouting communities, that's the first thing you're looking at is the city plan. So if the city is saying, hey, we have sustainability, we want clean energy, we want that economics in our community, we will be approached by developers. And there's a lot of money. I mean, in 1974, 76, depending on who you talk to, it destroyed our economy. And there's opportunity to restore some of that.
What destroyed the economy?
When the mine closed.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah.
For the housing, you're saying like affordable housing and for...
There's a lot of money coming down for affordable housing as well. But this is just the clean energy side of it. So it's the Inflation Reduction Act. It's a really long document if you want to read it. If you go to the Department of Energy, it's talking about all the grants that's coming down. And I specifically know there's one for mining communities right now.
So to be clear, these would be gotten through grants.
Correct.
Yeah, but the first step is to put it into the, it seems when we've dealt with matters like this before, we kind of referenced what other cities or what other cities our size or what, you know, what, using them as a model to put into our, is there a way for you or Nina to,
We can look and see if there's anything out there that.
yeah, okay. I guess it was with,
Colorado is very advanced. They've been doing this since 2010. They're way ahead of everybody else, so they're great.
Colorado.
Yeah. You look at their website, oh, it's amazing.
What city?
All of it, the whole state.
The whole state.
I mean,
Well, that's
literally,
awesome.
you get on there and there's a map and they're like, we want clean energy here. And they have all their planning and you just go on there and you're like, okay, let's do it.
And how do we get on the, I understand that there is a grant writer, the city has a grant writer.
We have somebody that helps every now and then. It's not a city, she donates her time every now and then for
okay.
certain projects. We don't have anybody on staff.
Okay.
And there are organizations out there that are specific for grants for this Department of Energy, like a consulting.
I'm sorry,
It's a consultants,
uh-huh.
where they're very familiar with the grants and all the money that are coming out.
So it's not just pointing out
So
which
it's not
grants to
necessarily our
apply
staff,
for.
you can hire a consultant to help,
Yeah.
bring that.
All right.
It's just, it's too great of an opportunity, I think.
Yeah. But without having the grant
Really, we
writer
should
or
be
however
discussing.
to
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
that.
I don't think that's, I mean, if we're discussing regulations for it, that's one thing, but
Yeah,
Sure.
it's just chatting. It's
Yeah.
not- it's
Yeah.
not-
And there shouldn't be a
Well, it starts with
discussion.
planning and zoning, you gotta say where you want these things. And next.
Well, maybe you can, on the agenda, recommend to put something
Yes.
where we can go from here, and maybe recommend to the council on some of the ideas that you may have. It's something that can be put on the agenda. That's a good, it's a good start for you.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think our general plan likewise is pretty vague in terms of, but it's certainly written to encourage everything, I guess. Anything positive we want to
See if it
encourage,
sticks.
but whether or not, but, I mean, not much of a motivation other than that. Certainly requires someone to step forward and
Now, I know we're not supposed to discuss, but we do have a city government that is very open to affordable housing, energy conservation. You know, this is the time that the city is sitting there looking to do this.
okay.
is there any specific
Agenda items for the next.
agenda items that
Yeah.
relate to that?
In addition to that, how about a grant writer? Or, someone who's not just volunteering their time, but if anything is gonna be pay for itself, wouldn't a grant writer?
Well,
The grant writers make-
that's also something I cannot answer, and that requires hiring someone, that requires money, requires budgeting for, and
Not necessarily hiring someone, but
Well, they welcome some
Contracting
people,
a
like I said, some
consultant
people
is-
do volunteer and do something and bring it to us and help us all along.
Yeah,
And,
we already have that. It's just finding people that are interested in doing
Like
that one thing.
she is talking about,
Or-
if you can help and contribute,
Yes.
the city will gladly work with you.
If the city is receptive to it, there are private consulting companies, they get a percentage of the money that they bring in. They're not a nonprofit, they are a for-profit grant writing.
And the grant allows you to give a consultant a percentage of
Yes.
the.
Like commission
Wow.
It's a commission, so what the young
I
lady
mean,
is saying is that the
like I
city.
said, come
Yeah,
up with
that-
something on the
that's-
agenda
Yeah.
and put it on the agenda, will be discussed and will forward it to the city council.
So the city council has to first acknowledge that, yes, we want to do this, and that they're open to it, and then private enterprise would come in and say, great, we'll go get you a grant, but they don't want to do it if the city is going to just say, no, we don't want it, because then it's an exercise.
City will always gladly take money.
The city said,
We're not gonna say no money, and I'm one
the
of
city
them.
says that, but then when they get into all the particulars of the requirements and what's all the minutia, trust me, as a person that does historic preservation, I'm offered a
I know
lot of
this is not on
grants.
the agenda, but believe me,
No.
this city has always had people that volunteer and help the city in a lot of ways. And the city will never say no. I can guarantee you this, if it's done properly.
So I guess the agenda item, who updates the general plan? Is that the planning and zoning? Just us?
Yeah, you.
Okay, so I guess the agenda item is to revise the general plan to incorporate things of importance like affordable housing, clean energy. I think it's been a while since it's been revised, yeah?
There's specific times at which it
Yeah.
is. I think we'll need to get some legal advice on
Yeah, yeah.
whether or how we can amend our general plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you guys can put it and raise it to the council.
I've written that down to run that by legal. We'll
Yeah.
talk to her.
Other items? Motion to adjourn? Motion.
Okay.
We are adjourned, thank you.